that we are supporting the regulator as well as the industry to improve on their credit risk frameworks. CIS Kenya, as some of you would know, is a member-based organization that champions the development of credit information sharing in Kenya. We extend our mandate slightly beyond just credit information policies and procedures. We go a little further to discuss and promote other aspects of credit infrastructure. We were established jointly by policymakers and regulators, along with the credit market participants in this mission. And so we are delighted that we could champion this conversation, motivated also slightly by two major reasons. One is the regulator is very, very keen to ensure that the industry is organized in its application of credit information sharing principles. As you will notice in the Kenya Banking Sector Charter 2019, as well as in the CRB Regulations 2020, there is a lot of emphasis on the use of credit scores in appraising customer applications and in pricing of credit. We also are motivated just by industry needs, the capital efficiency needs of lenders, who need to be very clear as to how they avoid biases in asset allocation, which is also very important in maximizing return on equity. Also giving consumers better experience is also an element of promoting their bottom line. And so with those few remarks, I would like to now welcome to hand over to Wachira Ndege, the representative of CARE Solutions in Kenya, and ask him to make his remarks. Over to you, Wachira.
Morning, everybody, and thank you very much, Jared, for the introduction. Mine will be very brief. I'm just here to give my appreciation first to CIS Kenya for facilitating this training and knowledge and awareness session. This is actually a follow-up to what we presented at the conference in February that was done by CIS Kenya for the industry. Our intention and aim is to seek to enhance and enable capacity within the industry for both internal credit rating and risk-based pricing. In particular, risk-based pricing, because it's a big deal now in the industry. We have experts who are joining us from CARE Risk India. They will be the ones to take us through the presentation, to also share with us their knowledge in terms of how it's been done in their country. India has actually been implementing risk-based pricing and internal rating models for over 4 years now, so they have very good experiences. They also have very good solutions that can be implemented in-house in financial institutions. So once again, I wish to thank everybody who's been able to log in now, and I hope that we'll be able to achieve and be able to get the knowledge that we are seeking to have. We will do a quick presentation by two of my colleagues from India. There is Vishu, who's the regional head of business development. There's also Subbu, who is head of sales. They will take us through the initial presentation and go into the actual rating and modeling, and also a brief demo of the solution. So thank you very much, and I hand this over now to Lemuel and Vishu.
All right. Thank you so much, Wachira. So just before to start, right, I just want to introduce quickly our team, right? So as Wachira said, my name is Vishu. I'm the regional head, for CARE Risk. Then joined by our senior vice president, head of products and sales, a long-time risk and treasury practitioner, Mr. Subbu. Then I have Mr. Bhanu, who is the product head, have been involved in global implementations with large banks in terms of implementing credit rating and risk-based pricing. Then we have even Saurav also with us. He's a CEO for Africa towards our credit rating business. So let me just quickly start with the flow of the overall presentation. So what we will be doing is we will quickly go through some of the slides, which will explain the methodologies, the need, the importance of credit rating as well as risk-based pricing. Then we have the actual models, right, to show up, which Mr. Bhanu will present in detail. Then, in terms of digitization and automation of this overall program, of credit rating and risk-based pricing for financial institutes, we will even showcase, how the automation is done using the fintech softwares. Yeah. So I welcome all of you, and then we'll get started now. Now, if you look into credit rating and risk-based pricing, right? The main concept is credit rating or credit scoring, right? So when it comes to the retail segment, right, the people like me and you, where the credit bureaus give out the scores, right? So that is typically called as credit scoring. And when it's a little bit more larger, right? When financial institutes, banks, SACCOs, have customers which are SMEs, MSMEs, or corporates, right? Then they need to do the credit rating by themselves, which is called as internal credit rating. And then there are certain credit rating agencies who actually do the credit rating externally, right? So that's the base concept of credit scoring and credit rating. Now, just to quickly start with who we are, right? So CARE Ratings is a group, right? Primarily second largest credit rating agency in India. We are in existence from 1993. We have done numerous, rating assignments. So rating is bread and butter, for us. Beyond that, we are present across various geographies. Let it be Mauritius, which is our head office when it comes to ratings Africa. Then we are present in Kenya also, right? And then we are present in some of the other Asian countries like Nepal. Then we have done a lot of work in Japan. We have done a lot of work within, Russia also. So all in all, specifically dedicated a public limited credit rating agency, which is primarily focusing on India and then some of the international markets. Then when it comes to CARE Risk Solutions, now CARE Risk Solutions is part of CARE Ratings Group, which only focuses on risk and compliance. So we have various platforms and consulting, which allows us to enable financial institutes, banks, SACCOs, payment banks, then microfinance companies to completely drive programs towards their regulatory as well as compliance requirements. Of course, credit rating and risk-based pricing is one of the prime work which we do. So we have done this across almost 10 various markets. That means that including some of the markets like Asia, Africa, then UAE and Middle East, right? Southeast Asia, our platforms, our solutions are completely complied with all the regulatory requirements within those 10 various markets. Now we believe in a methodology where the fintechs or the software companies in the risk and compliance space need to be more open. That means they need to enable the financial institutes with open solutions which are extremely configurable, where a simple handholding will help them to take their programs by themselves, to manage all the ecosystem, to enhance it, right? So that's the philosophy actually we come in. And then in terms of implementations and all that, we are extremely rapid, and the reason behind that is that the platforms, right, let it be the software platforms or the consulting behind that, are extremely configurable, right? And then further, we have been awarded, recently for our IFRS. Then recently, for Tanzania, within what we did for CRDB Bank, right? We won. We helped them to win an award where they were actually nominated and chosen as one of the best banks to be aligned with overall financial reporting. Right, so this is what actually we do as a CARE Risk Solutions. Now, let me actually, get into the subject. Now, if you see the overall scenario now, right now, digitization is, the biggest driver. And of course, the COVID is, one element which is actually, has fast tracked everything, right? So now, if you look into the overall scenario, earlier banks were going digital and then customers were, going and adapting, for all those elements. Now, if you see typically the uh, retail customers, as well as, some of the corporate customers, they have, changed their overall focus and they are digital. Now, then, for banks, financial institutes, for SACCOs, it is very, very critical now, to adapt with this, right? So that is very, very true, even towards credit rating ecosystem within the banks also, right? So the transition is actually, not just to make a program or make an initiative within your organization to get the credit rating done or risk-based pricing done, but to, digitize it so that you do not lose in terms of time and competition. Now, what are the elements which are affecting credit risk, credit rating, all towards modernizing it, towards going digital? Number one, uncertain operating environment. Now, pandemic is one thing, but these type of some of the other challenges are coming back and forth in various economies. So we need to cope with that. So that is one more, key driver. Beyond that, now if you see the African transition when it comes to regulatory changes, regulatory compliance and all, where risk-based pricing and credit rating is seen very, very seriously. So you will see not only the introduction of these elements, but you will see the constant change, right, towards making it better. So that push will come, from the regulators. So we all need to be, ready towards that. Another critical element is, as the environment is uncertain, right, a company or a borrower who has come in your ecosystem, you don't even know, right, that after some time, after 2-3 quarters or a year, right, whether he's going to perform in the same way in terms of repayment and all that. So it is very, very critical to be very, very, careful in terms of constantly monitoring your new incoming customers and existing portfolios, towards the loan. Now, another important thing is, now if you see some of the scenarios or some of the elements which are happening in some of the developing countries like India, now as India is fully equipped with all the digital, environments towards loan ecosystem, right from, getting the application towards doing the scoring or rating of, that particular borrower, and then, deciding yes or no, right, whether I want to lend the money to him or not. Everything is digital. So even if actually, some of the challenges like, COVID has moved everybody or pushed everybody to work from home, there was no such impact in terms of business continuity, right? So that is also, another critical point we all need to, understand, that whether I work from home, whether I work from, office, in terms of customer experience and the overall process, that should be, intact. Another very important thing is that each and every customer which is coming in, right, digitally or, walk-in, is completely different, right? You have businessmen coming in, you have, farmers, right? So it is very critical to have these robust systems in place and robust methodologies in place, so that you go beyond just profitability and you look, to expand your outreach also, right? So that the overall growth becomes, overall sustainable. And then another, critical element is speed and accuracy, right? So speed by, digitization is very, very critical, because if one organization is not doing it, there are payment banks, there are some of the other e-cash wallets and all that, who can get it done within 5 minutes, right? In some of the markets, literally loans are approved instantly with AI ML. Once you click the submit button, within 2 to 3 seconds, it analyzes and lets you know, okay, you're approved, not approved, or whatever, right? So now it is very, very critical to build innovative risk models which are dependent on qualitative information about the borrowers, as well as actually, quantitative information like financials and all that. Now, keeping this, in light, right? Of course, we'll, after 2-3 slides, we'll get into the actual technicalities and all that. But the quick benefits, which are extremely needed for any financial, organization with the use of internal credit rating. One is decision making, right? Your decision making has to be efficient. It has to be fast. There should not be any bottlenecks. Everything should be digitized, and then that helps you to get more work done within less time, right? So there are some banks, right, who are literally approving thousands of loans, right, for home loans and all that, right, in the ecosystems like India. Then another critical thing is that everything is digital. Then all the information is auditable. You are making sure that the entire flow is very lucid. So what happens is your internal people will just, with the matter of review and click, right, will be able to do the work, right? So there is a huge reduction when it comes to the cumbersome paperwork and all that. Everything actually can be transformed, and the overall time to approve or disapprove will become actually very, very faster. Then another critical point is you need to have a uniform method, right, bank wide, when it comes to doing the rating towards the credit worthiness of the borrower. So when somebody comes in for a loan, right, you need to have uniform methodologies, right, so that each and every borrower, right, is studied well, right? You put them through to the proven educational methodologies, which will allow you to empirically study each and every borrower, and then you take a calculative decision whether to go ahead and approve the loan or disapprove the loan. Then another critical thing is the quality of credit transactions will be extremely transparent, right? You will see whatever is happening, because behind the line all these ecosystems, right, are collecting the information and also doing all the housekeeping, account keeping and all that, which are ready at any point of time, right? So all the information is available for you. Another critical thing is the sound management, right? So what do I mean by that is, for any financial institute or a bank or a SACO, right, it will help you to quantify your overall credit risk, right, your entire credit portfolio, right, as an organization. And then you can even drill down to typical customer segments or some of even major customers also, corporate customers also. You have a clear 360-degree view to your overall credit risk. Then another critical element is, when you're planning to customize your lending products, when you plan to grow beyond your certain arena of type of customers and all that, all this allows you to study the performance very well, right, what all you have done, and then how the results are, so that you can plan your outreach, your expansion quite well, right? You can take the learnings from all this and then decide, okay, this is probably underprivileged customer base, where I might have to customize the product like this, and then I can actually go and lend them to, right? So from sustainable growth of point of view, this is also very critical. Then another critical thing is, see, each and every financial institute is different. When we are talking about commercial bank versus government bank, right, the approach, the overall purpose, the overall goal, right, can be completely different, right? So for every organization, we need to have a customized approach of overall credit rating and risk-based pricing, right? At the same time, each and every customer is also different, right? So the way you handle probably a medium income borrower and high income can be completely different, and this all will help you to serve them better, right, to win their customer loyalty. Now another very, very critical thing where most of the banks do not pay a lot of attention is constant monitoring. It's not matter of just while opening the loan account or just start the lending, but during each and every quarter, for all the new incoming customers as well as your existing loan accounts, we all need to make sure that the constant monitoring happens. Because of this, we will see any shifts, any changes, any risks, any stress which is developing in certain account, and then take proper action. One more most critical, right, from a regulatory point of view, the regulators are, of course, they're talking to multiple people. They come up with actually certain regulation, certain mandate, and then they keep improving it, right? So you need to not only to have the processes in place, but you need to equip them with all the needed fintech softwares, the platforms and all, which will help you to quickly adapt from 1 to 1+, right? So as the regulation or regulators are actually putting across new elements, you need to make sure that you are ready with very less time for all that particular change. Now the biggest element is your internal policy making. Now lending seems to be still the most powerful element when it comes to finance. Then when actually you are making a policy year on year, or some banks actually review the policies even quarter wise also. So all this information will help you towards your change management, right? So you will see that where the stress is built, which category is performing which way, which will give you a complete transparency and all the raw material or data to study, and then take decisions. Of course, compliance, regulatory compliance is something which will you'll be able to do with this. And then one more critical thing is compete, right? You will be able to compete with focus on sustainable growth. Now if you see the digital lenders, if you see some of the payment banks, if you see some of the online lenders, it's matter of 5 minutes, right? So in today's competitive world, the retail customer especially doesn't want to wait more, right? So having these elements in place will really help you to fast track everything, but in an accurate manner. Now let's talk about credit, critical part of credit, which is risk-based pricing, right? Now what are the quick benefits of risk-based pricing? One, you will be able to lend very responsibly, where you have focus on profitability, right, based on incoming customers, multiple customers of multiple types, multiple risk profiles, right? You might want to actually make sure that you statistically study them and then decide what should be the interest rate for them, so that you can manage your profitability also, and at the same time do not ignore the sustainable growth, right? Especially for some of the government entities and all, sustainable growth where they'll be able to lend to multiple segments of people, that is also quite critical. Then you will be able to do effective capital management also. And another angle is your digital pricing, right? Now risk-based pricing earlier was more of a manual and all that, right? But now the digitization has pushed it, and then you need to do everything using AI, ML and all that, where approval and disapproval and interest rate calculation also happens with the help of systems, right? So your pricing has to be automated, tried and tested, of course. Then it will give you a complete transparency on pricing, right? So the so that you can focus on low risk customers, and then actually further serve them to drive more profitability. Then so that will actually help you to identify those customers and then customize your overall customer servicing to them. And this will help you to even think of some of the customer segments where the availability of loan was not there earlier, right? Now you can take certain calculated risks and then actually go ahead and lend to people, right, who were probably were deprived from loans and all that. Then all this, right, you will have a complete view of the customer that will actually help you to understand the customer. Your relationship managers will literally go online and see what are the customer's preferences, how is their overall trend in repayment and all that, and then they will be able to cross-sell, upsell, or even better the current relationship. So you can win the customer loyalty and then change your route of servicing them with the help of transparent risk-based pricing. Then, as I told you, automation is the key, right? So you need to have AI/ML based workflows where there is literally no human intervention is required. Of course, you can even put in some of the steps or make a checker where you decide whether to lend or not, but at least the whole analysis and assessment of the case can be done in an automated way. You'll be able to improve your margins, and the most critical part is you will have a consistency with full control to the overall process, right? Unlike with manual processes, it can't be achieved. Then from regulatory point of view, right, each and every decision, each and every step is audited within the systems. So at any point of view, the regulator comes in, sits with you and wants to actually see all the trails, reports and all that. It will be with a single click. So you don't have to actually prepare differently, right, in terms of data, account keeping and all that for the regulators. And this will all streamline your compliance, right? So having these digital pricing elements in place with right methodologies will overall help you to think of sustainable growth, and at the same time compliance with your regulatory requirements, especially for emerging markets, right, where major chunk of the people are still where the bank loans are not available for them, right, which is unfortunately very true for Africa, even for India and some of the other developing emerging markets. So risk-based pricing will allow you to think beyond just profitable customers and plan your inclusive outreach, right? You probably take some calculated risk with higher interest rate, but you make sure that certain set of segments who were not having any reach towards loan and all, can you do that, right? So that will be possible using risk-based pricing. Another critical thing is collaboration, right? Now what do I mean by that is that risk-based pricing, right, to or even credit rating is impossible without collaboration, right? So that means collaboration with your bureaus, collaboration in terms of your internal teams when it comes to financial data, collaboration with your own customers, collaboration with your regulators and all that. I'll be explaining all this in the next slide. Then another critical point which many might have, right? Now there might be a limitation in terms of data, there might be some limitation in terms of having all the information, all that. See, there are certain ways where we can always think to move forward with whatever we have, right? And then see, as the data actually is accumulated and all that, then make things better. So Bhanu will explain a bit about it when he's explaining the actual models, the ways and methods of credit rating. Then the last point from my side, right, before Bhanu starts, is actually what sort of collaboration is required, right, to get all this fit in together. So considering customer as a central point or a focus point, right, one thing is internally all the financial institutes, banks, digital lenders, your SACCOs, then now payment banks, which are actually quite aggressive. Then even postal banks and all are also going online very soon. They need to look into their internal information, what all they know about the current borrower, right? Getting that ready, being bold enough to use all that, and then you have your credit bureaus, external credit rating agencies, which will give you scores and supporting information, right? Let it be for retail customers in terms of scores and all, and credit rating agencies can give you much more information regarding SMEs, MSMEs and corporate customers. And then another strong pillar which is very, very required in this is a strong constant collaboration between all the entities with the regulator, right? So banks and financial institutes need to also work with regulators, central banks, even global entities like World Bank or even non-profits, right, to understand what else has been done within some of the other geographies, other similar markets, which were of the benefit, right? And then last but not least, fintechs are very, very critical, right? So what do they do for you? They will enable this overall ecosystem together, right, by using the internal credit rating platforms or risk-based pricing platforms. Now the whole ecosystem with all these people working together, even if there are limitations, right, as such, in terms of data, in terms of processes and all that, the time has come that, we need to start this, and then, we will actually better it as the time goes. And same happened in India also. When actually, we started as a compliance, there were actually, definitely some of the overall hiccups and all that. But now if you see, we are geared up to the stage that a developing country right now can approve or disapprove a loan, after the application within 2-3 seconds. Yeah. Now, I would hand it over to Bhanu to, go further and explain in detail into the domain elements. Yes, Bhanu, over to you.
Thank you, Vishu. Can you stop sharing the screen so that I can
Sure.
start sharing my screen?
Sure, sure. So Bhanu will be sharing the screen now.
Yeah. So, good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, wherever you would be. So I'll quickly go through a couple of slides on rating and then on risk-based pricing. And then once the presentation is done, we'll go through an Excel an Excel model for a rating model developed by CareRisk Solutions. And then we'll also look at how that rating model is configured within a system, or how it can be digitized or automated using the CareRisk rating system. So just to begin with, what is an internal credit rating framework? An internal credit rating framework is nothing but a set of rating models which would generally assess the credit risk of transactions which an organization may get into, and through evaluating a variety of parameters which could be qualitative as well as quantitative in nature. These rating models should employ strong controls and should be characterized by best practices. So when evaluating a rating model, there is a mix of data which is required, both from internal as well as external sources. So internal sources could be something like the financials which are submitted by a customer, or other information which is gathered by the bank or financial institution from that customer. Whereas external data would be data from a source like an external credit bureau or a similar source. When you look at how complex or how simple a rating model or a rating framework should be, it actually depends on the sophistication of that particular institution's portfolio as well as business activities. So when you look at a bank or a financial institution which is sophisticated, has a very diverse portfolio, operates in multiple regions, its internal rating framework would be really sophisticated and will have a multiple number of rating models. But when you look at a medium or a small bank which is not very sophisticated in its portfolio and geographically not that spread, so you would have a comparatively less sophisticated and simple rating models, and the number of rating models deployed also would be very few. So a well-managed credit rating framework or a credit rating system benefits a bank in many ways, as you've seen in the earlier slides. So primarily it promotes primarily it supports soundness and stability, as in the customers who are performing, only those customers would be preferred by the bank. And how would we judge whether a customer is performing, is a good customer or not, is through the credit rating or the credit score which is derived for that customer. So by looking at the credit score or evaluating the creditworthiness of a customer, the bank is able to identify the customers who are good, and in short, more loans would be advanced to those customers who are performing than to those who are maybe not so good or have a history of defaulting and so on. So in a way, the asset quality of the bank improves drastically once you have an internal credit rating, a robust internal credit rating framework in place, because almost all loans or any exposures which the bank wants to give to any customer, those would be rated through internal rating models. So these could be internal rating models for corporate or SME customers, or you could also look at scorecards for retail customers. So as we've seen, as a result of all these, what we've discussed so far, An internal credit rating framework would enable the institution to effectively manage its portfolio. So as you've seen, the loans which are performing would be given more preference. So the portfolio and asset quality automatically improves. So rating also allows the bank to price its debts more effectively. And a rating is one of the major inputs which are taken into the process of risk-based pricing or capital pricing model, which we're going to see later on. And also the internal credit rating framework or deploying a robust internal rating framework leads to an optimal utilization of resources. So the bank would have a fair idea of bank or a financial institution for that matter would have a fair idea of the customers who are performing and the customers who may default or who are not performing that well when they assess assess them through the internal rating models. So the bank or financial institution can concentrate their energies and resources at those accounts or exposures where they see a probability of them being defaulted or where the asset quality is not up to the mark. So the bank resources need not be deployed that much on better performing customers as such. So an internal rating model or an internal rating framework is a critical input for multiple other credit functions of the bank. As we've seen, it is an important input in the credit approval process, as well as the credit pricing or risk-based pricing process. It also guides how the bank or a financial institution would conduct its relationship vis-a-vis credit with a particular customer. And it also allows the bank or financial institution to manage or administer their debts better. So overall, the pressure or the workload on the credit department, it gets distributed and the credit department is optimally utilized. So this was a brief introduction about how what is an internal rating model and what are some of the benefits of an internal rating model. In the coming slide, we'll be looking at how an internal rating model is developed and what are the various aspects or functions of a borrower which are included in the internal credit rating process. So on the left of your screen where my cursor is pointed are 5 major risk groups which basically make up an internal rating model, or for that matter any credit rating model, not just an internal or an external credit rating model. So the risk groups or item groups are broadly classified into 5. The first one being financial risk. Financial risk, as the name suggests, it involves evaluation of the financial stability and capacity of the borrowers. Financial risk is usually given the highest weight when a rating model is configured, because financial risk or finances, how the customer manage their finances, is a major driver for a bank to understand whether the customer is going to repay or not. In short, the most of the evaluation related to credit worthiness lies in the financial risk group as such. So the next major group we have is the business group, or the business risk item group, or business risk group as such. So these are various terminologies which you would come across generally when speaking about an internal rating model or a credit rating model as such. An item group or a risk group, it's nothing but a group of parameters having similar risk characteristics. So we looked at a financial risk group. Now then we have a business risk group. A business risk group basically evaluates how the organization functions, how well are the resources utilized within the organization. So you'd have parameters similar to capacity utilization, achievement of target set, and other similar parameters which are used in the business risk section of a rating model. So then we have the next part is the management risk group. So the management risk group, as the name suggests, it is an evaluation of the management, the capability of the management, the experience of the management. But also, it also looks at whether there is a proper succession plan in place, what happens if something goes wrong with the current management, and so on. Then we move on to industry risk. Industry risk is basically evaluation of the industry in which that particular borrower operates. So, industry risk looks at parameters such as competition within the industry, prospects of the industry, government regulations specific to that industry, and so on. So these were basically customer data which we would get either through market information or from the financials of the customer for all these groups, for the financial risk, business risk, management risk, and industry risk. So now I move on to the fifth element and the last element of a rating model, which is a transactional assessment. So transactional assessment basically looks at how a particular customer is performing. So it looks at whether for all the facilities maintained by this customer, whether he's repaid all those facilities on time, whether there's any default being done for any of those facilities, and so on. So data related to transactional assessment can be sourced from two major areas. One is if that customer is already a customer of the bank, then you would have the transactional behavior of that customer vis-a-vis his accounts being maintained at the bank. And the other source is data from the external credit bureau, wherein the credit bureau would you would get information related to accounts being maintained by that particular borrower with other banks or financial institutions, and along with them also the performance of those accounts, or how well have those accounts been managed or serviced by the customer. So this was a brief outlook on the structure of a rating model, or what makes up a credit rating model as such. So now we've seen what are the parameters or factors within a rating model. So the next step for us would logically be to look at how these rating models are developed and how these are evaluated to arrive at a rating grade or a score for the customer. So in the market today, there are three rating models. There are three major methodologies which are used when developing a rating model or using a rating model as such. So the first methodology is the expert judgment methodology, wherein the scores and weights are fixed scores and weights are used within the rating model. So these scores and weights are arrived on the basis of a past performance of the portfolio of the bank, along with other historical data which the bank would have, bank or a financial institution would have. So expert judgment rating models can be the most elementary form of rating models. So as a logical step, any institution which would want to start implementing a rating framework would start with expert judgment rating models, and in the course of time, based on the behavior of the portfolio and the output of the rating models already implemented, move on to the statistical or a hybrid approach. So coming back to the expert judgment rating model. So under an expert judgment rating model, as I've explained earlier, the scores and weights are fixed and are predefined. So the rating grade is as such arrived on the basis of a weighted average score, which is computed as a result as a product between the scores and the weights which have been assigned to each of the parameters within that particular rating model. And the score which is arrived, or the weighted average score which is arrived at, is slotted into the various risk grades which have been configured for a particular model or developed for a particular model, and based on the score and the grade grading in which that particular account falls based on the score, rating grade is assigned to that particular customer. So coming to the next model, which is or next methodology, which is the statistical rating model methodology. Under this rating model, The basic difference is that the score is computed using statistical formulas such as linear regression. So in the expert judgment rating models, we just had a basic calculation wherein there was a score and a weight, and we had a weighted average computed. But when it comes to statistical rating models, as I just explained, we have logistical regression based, linear regression or logistic regression based models where we have computation of weight of evidence, beta factoring, other parameters, which are included, which are used to arrive at the rating at the rating score, and also at the rating grade using the grades which are already configured. So now we move on to the third methodology, which is under discussion, which is hybrid rating models. So hybrid rating models, as the name suggests, are a mix of expert judgment rating models and statistical rating models. So certain parameters are assessed on the basis of principles under the expert judgment model, and the other set of parameters they generally use the statistical approach. So then the hybrid rating models as such are generally used in more developed economies where they have structured data for customers and historical data is available, and the behavior of customer can somewhat be predicted where the market does not fluctuate that much. So as a logical approach, the first step would be to start with an expert judgment rating model, because an expert judgment rating model requires not very few data points. It's historical customer data and delinquency data, and we are good to go to develop those rating models. So once we have the expert judgment rating models in place, then the next step would be to probably for using these models for 4 or 5 years or an economic cycle, the next logical step would be to upgrade these rating models into a hybrid kind of a rating model where certain parameters which have dependent on the market can be computed through a statistical approach. So there are very few banks or very few institutions which use a pure statistical rating model. So though the output is of a statistical rating model is more accurate as such, but due to the lack of availability of data and other shortcomings, generally people do not prefer to have a purely statistical rating model. It would be a preference would be of a hybrid rating model as such. So this was just a brief introduction on the rating models. After the presentation is completed, I will be going through an Excel framework of how a model has been configured. So I have with me a model for large corporate manufacturing, which we had developed for one of the banks. So I will be walking through that particular model in Excel and then going through how that can be fit into the system. But before going into the Excel, I'll just take a few more minutes and go through the risk-based pricing aspect. I think from a regulatory point of view, risk-based pricing has become the buzzword as such now. So because of the central bank's guidelines. So let us just understand what risk-based pricing is. Risk-based pricing is nothing but the lowest or minimum rate which a bank or an institution would want to charge to a customer to cover all their expenses. So expenses include something like operating expenses, cost of funds, any capital which has to be set aside for those particular accounts, or any future risk like expected loss, be it IFRS 9 expected loss, or any other additional cost or risk which may be involved in any exposure which the bank may enter into. So just to get into the technical words of it, the risk-based pricing involves computation of a minimum interest rate to be applied based on a trade-off between transactional level RAROC and hurdle rate. RAROC would mean all the risks and capital which is to be set aside for a particular transaction or a particular facility which the financial institution may want to advance. And hurdle rate is the minimum rate which they would want to charge, which covers the operating cost, cost of operating cost of funds, and maybe a markup for achieving the target which they would have in mind for minimum profitability. So this was basically a concept as such of risk-based pricing. So a robust risk-based pricing model allows the bank or a financial institution to optimally price its loans. Because when you have a model which is developed properly, taking into account all the aspects of the portfolio of a given organization, you're looking at coverage of all aspects of cost which may be involved. Like you could see on the right hand side of the screen where we have the formula for risk-based pricing. So here we're looking at cost of funds, operating expenses, expected loss, incremental capital. So all possible costs which are associated to a particular exposure are taken into account when we arrive at the minimum interest rate or the risk-based interest rate as such. So risk-based pricing as such also enables the bank to effectively manage their portfolio, because only those loans which are performing will get the best rate. Customers who are not good or not performing will not get a good rate as such. So in a way, it incentivizes better performing customers, which increases the consciousness from the customer's point of view that if he performs better, there will be a lower interest rate which will be charged from him. And in a way, since the bank is giving the customer a lower interest rate, the customer loyalty also would remain. So I'll just quickly run through the risk-based pricing formula. And in the coming couple of slides, which are the last 2 slides of the PPT, I'll be explaining the components of risk-based pricing as such. So as you could see here, we start with a hurdle rate or a minimum rate of return which the bank would want, multiplied by the incremental capital. Incremental capital is nothing but the additional capital which is to be set aside for advancing this particular exposure or facility. Then we have the operating expenses, cost of funds, and expected loss. All these are then divided by the total value of the loan to get to arrive at a percentage or a rate or an indicative rate which should be charged by the bank in order to make the minimum margin or cover the minimum cost which the bank would have. So here we just have those terms or elements or components of risk-based pricing in a bit more of detail. So the first aspect here is hurdle rate. Hurdle rate is, as I explained earlier, is the minimum rate of return at which a bank or an institution would want to lend to a customer. So this is in practicality, the weighted average cost of capital is usually considered as a hurdle rate. So alternatively, if a weighted average cost of capital computation is not available, or we come across certain institutions where they've said that they're not sure whether the cost of capital is being computed accurately or not. So instead of using a weighted average cost of capital, we could use indicative rates such as a treasury rate or a government rate, at the rate at which the government would probably lend, which is similar to a treasury bond rate. Or in fact, this would be any other rate which the bank or a financial institution considers to be their cost as such. So then we have the next aspect, which is incremental capital. So as I already explained, incremental capital is the additional capital which has to be set aside it's an additional capital which has to be set aside in order to advance a particular facility in line with the regulatory requirements. So just to draw parallels with India, in India, we have Basel III guidelines in place. So the cost or incremental capital would be the risk-weight asset based on Basel III guidelines. So in Kenya, if we start with Basel II, you can have Basel II. So depending on the geography where the institution operates, be it a bank or any other financial institution, we could look at whatever regulation there is on the basis of which capital has to be set aside and use those values as incremental capital in this calculation. So then we have the next element or component, which is cost of funds. So cost of funds is basically the rate at which the bank or financial institution borrows or generates or sources the funds which are lent to that particular customer or used for that particular lending for that particular facility. So cost of funds can be computed at multiple levels. It can be computed at a tenor level, a product level, a business unit or branch level. So all this depends on the structure, how the bank or a financial institution is structured, and how the policy setup is on borrowing or sourcing of funds for that particular institution. So I believe in Kenya also there is a requirement of computing the marginal cost of funds and submitting to the central bank. So we could use these computations as an input into the cost of funds. If we also have another offering called the fund transfer pricing system, which computes the marginal cost of funding, and the other aspect which we see on the next screen, which we'll see on the next screen, is the operating cost. So if anybody is interested in that, we could also look at follow-up regarding the fund transfer pricing as well. So this was basically how the first few components. I'll go on to my last slide, which has the last two components in the risk-based pricing formula I just explained. So the first aspect on this particular slide is the operating cost. So the operating cost is the share of common expenses of the organization which can be attributed to this particular loan which is being advanced. So this can be done at a ad hoc basis, or we've come across certain banks where cost of funds, where operating costs are maintained at a GL level. So this GL can be broken down in either on the basis of products or on the basis of a branch or a business unit. So depending on how, again, similar to the cost of funds, how the GL structure and how the costs are recorded at a given organization, these can be applied in the risk-based pricing process as such. So now we come to the last and the most important aspect of risk-based pricing, which is the expected loss. As you may be aware, IFRS 9 expected loss is now being made mandatory by almost all central banks around the world. So though there are multiple options to be used under the expected loss component, it would be advisable to use the IFRS 9 expected credit loss computation, which is being done because this is a regulatory requirement. And IFRS 9 also looks at forward-looking PD, a point-in-time PD, and also looks at lifetime loss or 12-month loss, depending on the credit quality of a given exposure. So we could use the IFRS 9 expected loss computations. I believe we also have a follow-up session after the rating session regarding the IFRS 9 expected loss computations. So we could use IFRS 9 expected loss in a one-off case where in certain geographies or there might be certain situations where IFRS 9 may not be required. So we could either use capital charge, also expected loss computed through credit risk guidelines, the IRB guidelines for credit risk, or in absence of both the credit risk expected loss or IFRS 9 expected loss, credit loss, we could use the standard asset provisions based on prudential guidelines for bad debts and which are prevalent in the geography where the financial institutions operate. So this was a brief introduction to rating and risk-based pricing. Now I'll switch to an Excel template of a rating model developed on expert judgment basis. This rating model is a rating model for large corporate manufacturing. So if you would have a query, if anyone would have a query, you can share it with us through the chat, and we'll be happy to reply to that. I'll just take a moment to stop sharing my screen, and I'll open up the Excel and share. So on your screen, you could see the Excel template for one of the rating models, which is a large corporate manufacturing rating model. So under this particular rating model, as explained earlier, this particular rating model is being split into 5 risk groups, which is the financial risk, business risk, management risk, industry risk, and transactional risk. I request those not on mute to go on mute, and queries, if any, could be asked shared through the chat. Thank you. So this is like I was explaining, this is a sample rating model or a template which we've generated for one of the banks, where we've implemented our rating models. So the first risk group is the financial risk group. So I'll briefly explain the weightages weightages given to each of these item groups, and then also touch upon the rating parameters used for each of these item groups or risk groups, and then jump into the system to walk you through the care risk rating offering, and how it can make your life easier, and how these rating models can be configured directly, can be mirrored into the system and be used by an organization. So we start with financial risk. So here financial risk has been given a weightage of 50%. So as explained earlier, financial risk is one of the most important aspects of a rating model, which requires to be assessed. Typically in cases of corporate borrowers who have a structured financial statement and other aspects maintained. So if you look at the formulas there, we have formulas such as debt service coverage, parameters such as debt service coverage ratio, current ratio, and all these factors. So all these ratios allow us to identify whether a particular customer will be in a position to repay the loan taken or not. For example, parameters such as the one highlighted here, which is debt service coverage ratio. So a debt service coverage ratio ideally gives us an indication of whether this customer can repay additional debt or not. So similarly, we have all the other parameters. Yeah. So this was a brief outlook on the financial risk. Then we move on to business risk. Business risk parameters in this particular rating model have been assigned a weightage of 15%. So these the parameters which are assessed here are capacity utilization, product diversification, buyer base, supplier characteristics, and so on. So when we move to the next worksheet, you can see all the parameters in detail along with the options for each of those parameters. So then we have management risk, which looks at competence of management, flexibility, succession plan, constitution of the enterprise, and so on. Then we have the next item group, which we have is the industry risk. So industry risk has been given a weightage of 10%. So here in under the industry risk group, we are evaluating the industry prospects for that particular industry, competition, and the impact of government regulations on this particular industry. So as a general practice, most of banks or financial institutions who have a rating system in place, they rate industries in a centralized manner, meaning there is a centralized rating done for industry, and then within each rating evaluation, just depending on the rating, so depending on the industry of that particular borrower, the industry risk score is taken in from the industry rating which is done. So here, just for the sake of understanding, I've taken in the industry risk parameters within the rating model itself. So then after the industry risk parameters, the last aspect of a rating model, or the fifth element, is our transactional parameters. So in transactional assessment, we have relationship with duration of the relationship with bank, operation of non-fund limits, overdues or devolvement of working capital. Also, we have other evaluations such as a percentage of financial transactions of that borrower which are routed through the current bank, so through the bank as such. So now we come to the second sheet, which explains the how each of these parameters can be computed or scores can be arrived at along with the source. So I will not be going in depth through these. I'll just explain one or two parameters, and then we'll move on to the system from here. So here we looked at the financial risk. So I briefly spoke about the debt service coverage ratio. So here, based on the data available of customers at that particular bank for which we had developed this rating model, we have arrived at these scores. So the column B, which I have just highlighted, are the ranges for debt service coverage ratio. So, and here in column D, we have the formula computation and the source from where all the variables for this computation are available from. So here, if you look at the column B again, which I'm highlighting. So in here, we have the first range, which is debt service coverage ratio, which is greater than or equal to 3, which has been given the highest score of 10, and so on. Similarly, depending on the range, there is a score assigned to each of those parameters. So here, I'll just go back to the first sheet, wherein here you could see the weightage which has been assigned to this particular parameter. So debt service coverage ratio has a weightage of 15%, and the score ranges from 0 to 10. And in certain cases where the score is below acceptable limits, we can also introduce a negative scoring. So this is one of the examples of a computed parameter. So then I'll just quickly go down to, say, something like business risk. So under business risk, you have parameters such as product diversification or positioning in the market. Let us look at positioning in the market. So when you look at positioning in the market, you have these various options. So whether the particular borrower is an industry leader or is immune to ups and downs in the industry. So if that's the case, that particular option would be selected and he would be assigned a score of 10, which is the highest score. So similarly, depending on various portfolios, we could have a separate rating model for manufacturing, and if there is a particular institution who is diversified within the manufacturing sector as well. So you could have cement industry or apparel manufacturing, something like. So any kind of rating models can be developed using this particular rating model as a base, because we are now looking at the overall industry as such, which is the manufacturing industry. And then based on the peculiarities of each of the industries within the manufacturing sector. These parameters can be tweaked to have a more effective rating model, please. So now I'll move on to the system, wherein we'll be showing you how this particular rating model is configured within the system. And also we would first start with some of the features of the system and then go into how this can be completely replicated in the system. If there are a few queries, we can take it up now for a couple of minutes.
Thanks, Banu. So right now we'll take 3 questions, if there are any. So any questions at this point before we proceed to the system? Okay, seems there are none. So Banu, kindly just proceed.
Sure. So just in a moment, I'll be sharing my screen. Just give me a minute.
Okay.
Standard asset provisions based on the regulatory guidelines which are used in computing the risk-based pricing. So in this particular case, this is the same example as the system which I was showing you earlier. We have not input any collateral. So that's why the collateral coverage is 0. So depending on the collateral coverage, also the cost differs. So here we've taken the collateral coverage as 0. So the uncovered exposure is 500,000, the entire limit which is advanced. So the other aspects involved in the computation are the capital charge percentage for this particular product, customer type, and other aspects on the basis of which asset class can be configured on the or can be ascertained through the Basel guidelines. Then we have the cost of funds, which I've taken as 8.95%, and operating expenses as 2.17%, and standard asset provisions at 0.5%. So when you look at the formula, we are taking into account the first part of the formula. We are looking at additional or incremental capital which has to be set aside for this particular loan. Along with that, we are also looking at additional costs such as what is the impact of cost of funds, operating expenses, and standard asset provisions on the pricing. And through that, we've arrived at the pricing of 12.77%. Similarly, if I take the same example and instead of using, so here I have used collateral coverage as well. And here we are using IFRS 9 ECL as an element in cost when computing the risk-based pricing. So here, if you look at the collateral coverage, it's 400,000. The limit amount was 500,000. So as such, the uncovered exposure is 100,000. When you look at the computation of the risk-based rate or indicative pricing, you have the first aspect, which is the hurdle rate multiplied by the additional capital required. Then we look at the other aspects such as capital charge, which would be required, cost of funds, operating expenses, and IFRS 9 ECL. So IFRS 9 ECL would be computed as a product of the PD and LGD for that particular loan. So since it's a new loan, we would, and the customer is not in default, we would consider the period 1 year, 12-month ECL for the purposes of risk-based pricing. So there, if the bank or financial institution wants to lend to borrowers who are already in the D rating grade, for those customers, we would be using the lifetime ECL based on the tenor of that particular loan to include in the risk-based pricing computations. So this ensures that customers who are performing are not penalized, and customers who are not performing are penalized through lifetime inclusion of lifetime loss. So this is these two examples I've taken involve computation of capital charge or provision and IFRS 9 ECL. So I have another approach here wherein, if we need if you're not sure on whether IFRS 9 has to be used immediately, or we wait for a while to look at how our IFRS 9 computations are working out, and then use the IFRS 9 computations in the risk-based pricing computation. So here we could use another approach, which is a very basic or elementary approach, also known as the risk premium or risk plus approach. So here, based on market information, we could slot all those, we could assign a risk premium to each of the rating grades within the rating model. So based on these rating grades and the risk premium assigned, we could start computing the risk-based pricing, because in order to get probability of default, accurate probability of default in place, we would need certain data, historical data, which is required for computing those calculations. So in order to implement a risk-based pricing model immediately, because that is the requirement or that is the guideline from the regulators, we could start with a risk, with a rating setup, and then a risk plus setup, wherein you have ratings which are being computed. And on the basis of the ratings, we initially start with a risk premium, which will then gradually shift to the expected loss once we have adequate data for generating the PD and LGDs. This was a basic walkthrough through the risk-based pricing and the system. I think we'll open up the session for Q&A now. If there are any specific queries regarding the models or the system, we could do that. Or just before I conclude, I'll just go through a normal implementation schedule we have, or the implementation process of credit ratings and risk-based pricing. So which will allow the viewers or the the attendees to understand how the rating framework can be set up at a particular financial institution. I'll just take a minute.
Till Bhanu opens the screen, right? How the internal credit rating and risk-based pricing program or an initiative can be run within the bank. This is coming out of our global experience with almost 80 plus banks. Yeah. So we want to actually stepwise explain you what all has to be done if you want to go ahead and put across credit rating and risk-based pricing in place. Yes, Bhanu, go ahead.
Yep. So we have, this is a typical, based on our experience on implementing model, credit rating methodology and similar assignments. So what you see on screen is a typical flow on how credit rating and risk-based pricing can be implemented at a given financial institution. So the first step would be to have a rating policy or credit policy or framework in place. So this framework or policy would this rating policy or framework would allow us to allow the bank to identify how these rating models can be structured, or whether these rating models can be broken up just sector wise or go down to a granular level. So there'll be a study done on what are the kind of rating models which will be required, what will be the sophistication of the rating models which are required to be deployed at that particular institution. And along with that, we would also look at the workflow which is to be used for each of the rating models which are being which will be developed and deployed at that financial institution. So this would be done on the basis of inputs from the bank, their past experience, portfolio of the bank, overall policy outlook of the bank and similar factors. So basically the first step is more or less like a policy or framework which will form a basis through which the entire rating process would function or would process. So it will be in a way like a bible for the bank once the framework is in place. So once we have the framework, the next step would be to develop rating models on the basis of the outcome of our analysis and the points stated in the framework or the policy. So rating models can be multiple kinds. You could have rating models which are used for corporate or SME customers where you have structured financials or some kind of financials, or you could have scorecards where which are typically used for retail customers where you do not have a lot of financial information, and rather than lot of financial information, we do not have credible financial information. So in these cases, we'll have to look at a more qualitative evaluation of the parameters. So depending on all those aspects which we ascertain in the first step, we would develop these rating models for the entire portfolio of the bank or financial institution. So these rating models would be developed on the basis of the historical customer data, loan data. Loan data would be something like delinquency data, performance related data. Customer data would mean something similar to the financials of customers or other qualitative or quantitative information related to the customer which may be available at the bank. So typical sources for these data are the loan listing or data from the core banking system, loan origination system, and through external sources such as the credit bureaus. So once we have developed these rating models, the next step for us would be to validate these rating models with the data available at the bank. So through this model validation exercise, we can ascertain that the models which are developed are a true and correct fit for the bank, So this will help us to ascertain and to validate that the models developed are in order and would reflect the true nature of the portfolio of the bank. So once we have the models developed, models validated, back tested, the next step would be to plug these models into the credit risk through the care risk system, and once we have them configured in the system, the bank can start testing it through the digital medium, through the system, and continue their processes for credit evaluation through the system instead of being dependent on manual working as such. So then we would come up to the analytical aspects of the program, which would be computation of PD, LGD. So basically these models as such would be developed along with the other rating models which were developed earlier. But since the output of the rating models is one of the inputs required for evaluating these rating models, once we have adequate back testing done and model validation done, the data from those tests would be used as inputs for fine-tuning the PD and LGD models which are developed. So there can be multiple kinds of PD, LGD models which are developed, such as those based on IFRS 9 or based on IRB guidelines under Basel. So since IFRS 9 is a requirement for almost all financial institutions, it would be advisable to start with, to go ahead with the IFRS 9 based point-in-time PD and LGD models. So the data required for these rating models basically is for PD as such would be historical delinquency data, and for LGD would be historical recovery and collateral data, basically how much the bank has recovered from customers who have defaulted in past. So then once we have the rating process sorted, we are okay with the computations of PD, LGD, and so on, we'd move on to the risk-based pricing. So risk-based pricing would allow you to compute accurate pricing for loans. So the risk-based pricing model used again would flow from the rating policy or framework which has been developed in the first phase. So this was a brief walkthrough on how a system could be implemented. We can now open for the Q&A.
Right. So Bhanu, I think there were two questions. So let's start with that, and then let others also after that unmute and probably ask questions. So Lemuel, with your permission, I just want to go ahead and reiterate the question.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Vishu.
Okay. So one question is from Mr. Tito from NCBA Group, right? Confirm that the process of model validation, right? During the process of model validation, whether the system can be interfaced directly with core banking or other credit appraisal or origination systems, right, to carry out the validation.
Sure.
Bhanu, what can be the recommended approach?
So basically, when it comes from an interfacing point of view, system can be interfaced directly with the core banking or an external rating source such as the credit bureau or any other source. So in terms of interfacing, the system is pretty flexible. So it can interface with almost any kind of systems, either directly or through an API or other prevalent approaches. So basically, when it comes to model validation, we would need certain data from external sources such as external rating and external value of parameters. So these can be directly interfaced from the credit bureaus through an API or a similar process, and as an alternative, these can also be uploaded into the system through flat files or Excels, whatever is convenient. So as a capability, we can interface it directly and do it. So there's no restriction as such on that aspect.
Right. So hope that answers your question, Mr. Tito. Any further follow-up question regarding that? If you have, you can unmute the mic and speak, not an issue. All right. So I'm moving to the next question. Does the system have the capability to have a limit assignment model? That is, a criteria in which the customer's maximum limit is determined based on the specified policy or a defined criteria. This question is coming from Joy.
Yeah. So this module would form part of the loan origination system which we have, but that can be incorporated into the rating system depending on the specific requirements of the bank. So since our system is a completely modular one, we can have the limit module wherein, to just put it in simpler words, this module would allow the evaluator, a bank user, to create limits or sub-limits for a given customer or evaluation. So that is a function which is already available in the system.
Great, thanks, Bhanu. So now the next question is coming from Ruth. Does the system have to undergo interoperability test to coexist with core banking, or it can run independently irrespective of interoperability test with the core banking?
Yeah, so so this system can be run independently. The only dependency on the system on the core banking is from a data interfacing point of view. So the system as such does not require real-time data. End of day data is interfaced into the system. So there is no interoperability aspect as such involved. They can coexist in a way. So there is not a lot of dependency on core banking. The only dependency is to extract the data. Apart from that, the system is not dependent on the core banking as such.
Correct. Okay, fair. Now the next question is from Wandiri from Kenya, Wall Street. Now post-COVID, right? Now you have seen a lot of digital transformation and all that. What as an expert, what do we see? Any changes in the credit scoring or risk-based pricing methodologies in short term or long term?
Yeah. So basically, it was something which was already working, already making its rounds, but because of COVID, it has become more important. So actually, what we looked at initially when these rating models came up was we only looked at external data. Then after the models got sophisticated, we looked at only internal rating data. So now when it comes to situations which are currently facing like COVID and other aspects, we have to look at a rating model which has parameters which looks at the macro environment as well as the customer. So if the models are becoming more user centric as such, because globalization may not be the same after after we're through COVID. So when we look at these rating models, we would have to look at specifically the customer, how well the customer is established, and how he can service the loans which the customer would have taken from financial institutions.
Right. So ideally, Bhanu, you're saying that whatever the expected impact industry can see in a particular segment, that has to be thought through and translated within your credit rating models and risk-based pricing criteria, right?
Right.
Okay. And one more addition, which the local government here in India is looking after. Now, as of now, right, in spite of all these processes and all, as for a temporary relief, the government has asked banks to go and offer certain time period moratorium towards their loans, where the customers, especially the retail customers, can stop paying their monthly installments for some time, at least for 3 months. And of course it is at will basis. So banks have already come forward and have offered that to the customers, right? And most of these customers are actually getting benefit of it. And of course behind the background, the banks are actually continuously assessing the overall impact on different industries. For example, probably the medicines and all that industry will rather go up, right? While some of the other elements like supply chain, then hospitality and all that might have probably immediate negative outlook, right? So these kind of things need to be translated within the models, of course, in terms of weightages, in terms of the relevant country risk or segment risk, the industry risk and all that. Yeah. Thanks for the question, Wandiri. Very, very relevant. Okay. Now, I think people can unmute and ask the questions, right? Because I think all the posted questions on the chat are done, right? Lemuel, over to you.
Yeah, it's fine. So we can, anyone with a question or feedback can actually share with the rest of the team.
Bhanu, just move to the next slide till people ask questions, please.
I think I can actually ask one. I would like to know, do you also consider alternative data? I mean, data from non-financial sources, and how does that integrate in your models?
me answer that. Yeah. So we look at both. We call it qualitative and quantitative data. So mostly the financial related data which we have is qualitative data, which allows us to understand multiple aspects for borrowers. So when you look at something like a microfinance industry and so on, so there we would have to look at more of this kind of data, which is not based on financials but based on certain aspects of the borrower. We can ascertain whether this customer can repay on time or not. So these how these model parameters can be used would actually depend on the kind of portfolio for which the modeling is being done. But these kind of parameters are considered and are becoming more prevalent now, specifically in the retail sector. When it comes to the corporate or an SME sector, we still the bulk of the weightage is given to the financial risk part. But when it comes to the retail or unorganized sector as such, there we are looking at more parameters which are not structured or which are qualitative in nature.
I just want to add, like, there are, behavior analysis and all those kind of things which comes in from a customer behavior aspects, etc. So those are also considered when it comes, because when you incorporate AI ML as part of the solutions, okay, these aspects also are driven as part of the solution. Hope that clarifies.
Any further questions? Please feel free. You can even type also if there is a background noise and all, and you don't want to unmute, you can even type the question in the chat box. Okay, in meanwhile, if you want to know more, on the system or the overall, process of rating, risk-based pricing and all, please, note down the email addresses. Of course, we'll send out, all the information deck to all of you via CIS, right?
And as a follow-up to this session, we'll also have a session for IFRS 9 related concepts shortly.
Right. Okay, one, I think, yes, please go ahead. Somebody had a question, I guess.
Hello?
Can I say something? I think Tito is on. Please let Tito speak.
Sure.
Thank you. I wanted to find out about retail focus. I think you've done quite a large extent on the corporate side. On the retail side, please explain that, how it works in rating. Thank you.
Manu, did you understand the question or you want somebody to repeat it?
If I understood the question correctly, you wanted some information on the retail scorecards as well, right? Because during the walkthrough, we had covered basically the corporate one.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So actually, can you just give me a moment? I'll just check if I have any of those ready, or I can just quickly explain the kind of parameters which are used. So basically, I'll first explain the parameters, and if I'm able to find a rating model in Excel to show it to you, I'll show it to you right away. Otherwise, probably we can connect with you also again and have a detailed meeting for and explanation or discussion on that. But just to give you an outline, the retail scorecard basically would have information related to whether the customer is married, what is the age of that customer, whether he's employed, or if he's employed, whether that particular customer is salaried or has his own business. What are the liabilities or loans which the customer already has. So whether his income is enough to cover his expenses and also the interest which is to be repaid for this new loan. To also look at the salary or monthly income or a profit which that customer earns monthly. So similar parameters would be considered when it comes to a retail model as such.
And one more additional point to this is that we have seen globally that the bureau data, the scoring information is something which is definitely one of the aspects considered when building the retail model, right? And of course, for the customers where the scoring and all is not available, right, they will have to go totally by the internal retail model. But whenever there is a possibility that the bureau data is available, that is also considered along with other parameters.
Okay, that's fine.
I was going to suggest, Jared, here that if there are areas that the participants would feel need a separate session, it would be appropriate to make a suggestion in this forum so that we can consider it. Thank you.
Jared, if I may, this is Billy of TransUnion. I don't know if you can hear me.
Please go ahead, Billy.
All right. Thank you. Thank Wachira and the CARISC team for this session. I think it's pretty much a good one and also quite timely. I think my question or kind of like comment also would tie into why I'm calling this timely. I think we know that there's been recent regulatory changes that the central bank announced late last month, which are now in place. And one of the requirements, I think you alluded to that, Jared, was that it now places a requirement on use of credit scores to drive risk-based pricing, and going even to the extent of having some fines attached to scenarios where credit scores have not been used well. Yeah? And I think this is going to put a lot of pressure on the lenders, because we have to appreciate that the lenders are at different levels of sophistication in terms of systems. There are those we've seen who have their own internal scores. There are those who have dual matrix scores, so they're able to use both their own internal and bureau scores as they do the decisioning process. Yeah. So for Vish, Wachira, and the team, what would you advise a lender who today needs to ensure that, of course, they build this into their business processes in terms of lending, to ensure that, of course, they are compliant to the new regulations in place, whilst they have nothing? So because remember, there are banks who today have been lending based off manual processes or even an Excel sheet. So such a lender who has no system in place or have no decisioning process in place, what is this that they need to put in place, and how well can you integrate to help them get up and running very quickly to be ready for risk-based pricing, considering that now it's a regulatory requirement that's going to be driven?
So this is Bhanu here, Billy. I'll take your question. So basically, you know, we have to look at the sophistication or lack of it at each bank, which is wanting to have a risk-based pricing system in place. So first, we would have to actually look at what kind of data or what is the process. So even if there is just an Excel based evaluation or no evaluation which was being done earlier, we can start with a risk based pricing model which would look at aspects such as the costs which are involved. And uh, if I could just show you an Excel working where I've taken just the provision. I've not even looked at expected loss or other factors. So when we look at that working, just give me a moment. I'll share that Excel with you.
So I just want to add a couple of things. One is we can surely hand over to the prospect as to what they want to achieve as an immediate goal, and tell them, when you get into having system, what are the benefit they get, and how their current data can be moved into the system and achieve the immediate goal of automation. Then move into the next level wherein you can add all those other kind of formulas and everything by which they can have much more system-based decision making. That way we can help.
So
Right. And yeah, and Billy, one more point, before Bhanu explains this particular part. As we talked about collaboration, right, earlier, I think it is becoming a pressing need now that the scoring providers, of course, as we know, you are the major one, TransUnion. We, look forward and we see that it's a compelling need now that at least in the retail sector, right, we all have to actually work together. Whatever information is available, it has to be interfaced seamlessly to and fro, and then actually start with what we have, and then actually learn from it, and then get to more sophistication. That is something which we have seen in India, in some of the other countries like Sri Lanka, where there was definitely some logistical challenges, data limitations and all that, but bureaus and fintechs and banks, they worked out the plan pretty well. And the key was the fintechs and even bureaus working very closely together, right? So that was that is also one more critical point which we see in near future. So looks like we all have to actually work together, Billy. Yeah.
So just a couple of minutes. I think we've already crossed the time, but still, I'll just take a couple of minutes to explain how we can help a bank or a financial institution where they would have literally no data apart from just the loan data which is being given out. So if you look at this example which we're using, so here what we've done is we've considered all aspects which are readily available at the bank. The first is the weighted average cost of capital, which in all probability would be computed by any kind of financial institution. So in cases where even this particular calculation of the hurdle rate or the weighted average cost of capital is not being done, we could use something like a treasury bond rate or a government lending rate, which is like a risk-free rate at which borrowing can be done, or the government can, you can borrow or available in the market. So it's the lowest rate. You could consider that as the minimum rate or the hurdle rate. Then information related to the limits should be available in an ideal scenario, irrespective of the kind of systems and sophistication at a financial institution. I think they would have information about limit and the kind of collaterals which have been pledged along with those limits. So basis that computation, we know whether the collateral is being covered, whether the collateral coverage is enough and what is the uncovered exposure. So on the basis of that uncovered exposure, we know or we can evaluate how much capital has to be set aside for capital charge. So I think all banks have to follow the capital charge regulations. Maybe the financial institutions may not have a regulation, so they are not required. So that doesn't form part of the risk-based price or the cost which is being computed. Then we look at other aspects such as cost of funds and operating expenses. So initially, they may not be sophisticated computations as such, but a financial institution which is operating, would have an idea of what their cost of funds or operating expenses are. So this is something which can also be taken on an assumption basis. And I think if not for other countries, but for Kenya, I'm sure that banks are required to submit marginal cost of funding reports to the central bank. So these values of cost of funds and operating expenses, not that much of the operating expenses, but the cost of funds can be ascertained through the marginal cost of funding. So in short, what we could do is we understand that risk-based pricing is the priority. So we can start with a model which doesn't require any historical data or any rating specific data. So we can start with something which just computes risk-based pricing on on the basis of standard asset provisions. In the meanwhile, once we are okay with the basic risk-based pricing model applied, we can start working with the bank or financial institutions to come up with a more sophisticated risk-based pricing model, which may also involve computation of expected loss, the internal credit ratings, and so on. So initially, the requirement is being met by a simple model, but as the data gets coming into the system, the more data is consumed, we start developing a more sophisticated risk-based pricing platform, which would take into account multiple aspects of how a financial institution operates.
Does that answer your
just a quick one on from my perspective, based on what Billy was asking. Now, I think based on, if you look at what has been given in terms of risk-based pricing, I think the banks or financial institutions have to accept that now we have to move more to automation, where you're trying to differentiate pricing based on the risk. It's very difficult to do that manually. Previously, where you could work with a flat rate across any kind of credit, it was possible for you to use your manual systems. But as we speak now, I think institutions have to bite the bullet, look at these kind of solutions to be able to implement these systems effectively. Now, you're looking at both internal data, that's performance data for the institution, and also using external data like the credit bureau's data and the scores, and combining that to come up with differentiated pricing. To be honest, I don't see how that can be done manually. So even as we look at the weaknesses that banks or institutions may have in terms of data gaps, automation, I think it's imperative now that you start considering implementing solutions that will allow you to be more efficient and meet your compliance requirements.
I think you summed it up very nicely. So I will just take 1 minute of yours. What really happens is many times the institution are a little bit skeptical as to when they get into automation, etc. How do they go about the whole journey? That is one thing, because they either feel that there's a shortfall on the data, what they already have it, and the progress to be made from a digitization is much more sophisticated. So how do we bridge the gap and connect those things and give them that comfort? So basically two things. One is we can have a consultative approach telling them, this is what your current situation is. To move into these are the areas or the gaps or where you need to get a little bit of data, either it will come from your local market providers, or we take an assumption and run with it. Okay. So a kind of a progression, kind of Venn diagram kind of a thing where you say that from here you improve to the next level, from here you move to the digitization level, and handle them in each of the place. That is where the comfort comes in, and that is where the success factor comes in. Okay. And that's where the whole project gets done. So that is the difference we are trying to make it. If you look at the last slide before this, which was stated, was basically bringing in the experience what we had done through the implementation globally. That is what we are bringing it to any of the customers. Learning from whatever experience you have and working together. That's the way. That's the model we work in. hope this, gives you the comfort.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. So thank you for your questions. At this point in time, I would want to end Care Risk Solutions for your presentation. So at this point in time, I would want to have Jared Getenga, the CEO of CIS Kenya, to give his closing remarks. Then we can end the session. I hope you enjoyed it. Over to you, Jared.
I think he's on mute.
Okay, I hope I can be heard now. Sorry for that delay.
Excellent. Yeah, now okay.
Sure, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I would like to thank everybody who has participated in this discussion. It has opened up some areas of further discussion and areas of engagement. We look forward to having more conversations, and it would be useful if participants could kindly let us know areas around this conversation that we should spend more time on. Thank you very much, our facilitators. Thanks, Wachira, for supporting us through our linkages. I would like to mention that besides TU, who was mentioned, TransUnion, who are mentioned in this discussion, we have another two very, very competent bureaus in the market. Metropole, I believe they are in the meeting today, as well as Credit Info, who have equally robust solutions that we should be able to continue to engage with. And so with those remarks, we'll look forward to having you all again in a future discussion. And I want to thank you very much for all your participation and wish you a very safe stay at home. And those who have different working arrangements, all the best as we continue to stay safe during this pandemic. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Jared. So the presentation will be shared to you later this afternoon, and the video in the course of the week.
And should anybody have any questions, especially for us on Care Risk Solutions, you have got our email addresses. You can write to us individually, and we can take it up from there. Otherwise, thank you very much for your participation too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.